Title: After being bound to the abandoned wife system, I pampered my vicious husband like a treasure in the 1960s. Chapter 1: The assassin opens her eyes to find herself reincarnated as an unfortunate young bride in an era of famine. Top-tier assassin Lang Meyer had just finished a mission and was resting with her eyes closed at home when, in the next instant, she was abruptly awakened by a shrill shout from outside the courtyard. Lying on a strange mud brick bed, the memories of the original host, Wan Shuorong, flooded her mind. The original host was a shy 18-year-old girl who, in order to raise 160 yuan for her second older brother's betrothal gift, had been forced by her family to marry Meng Dekui, a man who had offered only 80 yuan and 30 jin of grain. Who would have thought that on the very day of the wedding, the groom would vanish for over a month without even entering the bridal chamber. Timid and introverted, the original host forced herself to go to work every day to earn labor points, eating less than a cat yet working harder than an ox. A few days ago, while washing clothes by the river, she collapsed from exhaustion and fell into the water. When she woke up, her consciousness had shifted into that of Lang Meyer. Over the past 3 days, only the original owner's younger sister-in-law, Meng Meijiao, had come punctually every day to bring her meals. She brought the family's precious millet porridge and steamed egg custard to help her recover, fearing her throat might be damaged. She even went so far as to secretly borrow money to buy medicine for her, which made Lang Meyer feel rather embarrassed. After 3 days of recuperation, Lang Meyer finally regained her strength. She told her sister-in-law she no longer needed to make the special trip to bring her meals. Once she was fully recovered, she would go to the old family home to eat. For the first time, she found a mirror to get a clear look at this body, slender and delicate, with an oval face and double eyelids. Her skin was somewhat pale from the illness, a world apart from the alluring and radiant appearance of the assassin she had been in her past life. Since she was here, she might as well make the best of it. As an assassin with top-tier wilderness survival skills, building a fire and chopping wood were no challenge at all. She boiled a full pot of hot water, locked the courtyard gate and her bedroom door, and enjoyed a comfortable hot bath. Only after getting out did she realize she hadn't brought a change of clothes, so she simply strutted over to the wardrobe naked to look for something to wear. She had absolutely no idea that her husband, Meng Dekui, who had been missing for over a month, was standing right outside their courtyard gate at that very moment. Since the gate was locked from the inside, and afraid of waking his young wife from her afternoon nap, he had scaled the over 1 meter high courtyard wall with his bare hands and jumped in. He was even mentally planning to have the wall rebuilt higher later on, to ensure his wife's safety when she was home alone. Chapter 2: A single punch activates a bizarre system. No divorce allowed, they must be a loving couple. Meng Dekui found it too much of a hassle to push open the kitchen door, which was locked from the inside, so he simply took the door off its hinges and strode into the east room, carrying a half-full bag of grain. Lang Meyer, who was sorting through her clothes, instantly sensed the commotion. Without a moment's hesitation, she clenched her fist and slammed it hard into the intruder's right eye. There was a dull thud, and Meng Dekui let out a howl as he clutched his eye and crouched on the floor, the grain sack in his hand crashing to the ground with a thump. But just as he let out a half-hearted cry, he was completely dumbfounded. The young wife before him had just finished her bath, revealing a pair of long, straight, fair legs that gleamed so brightly they made his brain go blank. He, a rough and tumble bachelor who'd been single for over 20 years. Lang Meyer, who had raised her fist to land a second blow, froze the moment she saw the man's face. He had a broad face, thick eyebrows, round eyes, and full lips, paired with a burly build over 1.8 meters tall. He looked just like a black bear. No wonder the original host had been too scared to even look up after just one glance. Just then, an icy, mechanical voice exploded in her mind. Ding! Host's first intimate encounter with the mission target completed. Intimacy +5. The "Don't be a jilted wife" system is officially activated and bound. You've been granted one free daily spin on the lucky wheel. Rewards have been disbursed. Langmeier was completely dumbfounded. What on earth was this? The "don't be a jilted wife" system. So the original host was destined to be abandoned by this ugly man and die poor and sick before she even turned 30. Then why not just get a divorce right away? The system immediately issued a red warning: host is strictly prohibited from entertaining any thoughts of divorce. This system's core objective is to promote family harmony and marital affection. Any attempt at divorce will trigger the most severe punishment. Langmeier instantly came to terms with reality. In her previous life, she had committed too many misdeeds and accumulated karmic debt. The original host, Wen Xiaorong, had earned merit that granted her the opportunity to be reborn into a wealthy family. She had struck a deal with the system to allow Langmeier to take over the body. To return to the modern world and uncover the cause of her own death, she would have to level up the system to its maximum and build up enough intimacy with Meng Dequai. Just as she was about to flex her wrist to land a punch on Meng Dequai's other eye to make it appear, she saw that he had mostly regained his senses. Staring at her clenched fist, he broke out in a cold sweat and shouted frantically, "Don't hit me, honey. I'm your husband." Langmeier immediately called off her attack, instantly switching back to the original host's timid and cowardly demeanor. Stammering, she pretended she'd only just recognized him. Meng Dequai. You were crouched on the ground covering your face. I didn't recognize you at first. Meng Dequai, holding his black and blue eye, couldn't help but wonder, this little woman used to not even dare lift her head when she saw me. How come she punched me the moment we met today? He immediately snapped at her in a fierce tone. You little woman, how dare you lay a hand on your husband after just a few days apart? Are you looking for a beating? Hurry up and get dressed. If anyone sees this, I'll divorce you. Langmeier rolled her eyes inwardly but immediately feigned panic, putting on a tearful act. Husband, please don't divorce me. I thought some bad guys had broken in, so I struck first. I just barely survived falling into the water. You can't abandon me now. With just a few words, she played the vulnerable victim, leaving Meng Dequai so flustered he could barely form a coherent sentence. He'd originally intended to order his wife, who'd only just recovered from a serious illness, to cook for him, but after hearing Langmeier's pleas, he suddenly remembered that the dozens of gin of grain he'd left at home before leaving had vanished without a trace. Fearing his young wife might be mistreated by her in-laws, he not only refrained from making her do any work but also silently and effortlessly carried the heavy wooden bathtub outside, even taking the time to scrub it spotless. Chapter 3, Winning a face cream in a raffle. The rough and tumble guy secretly hides his fortune. Once Langmeier discovered that Meng Dequai had climbed over the wall to go hunting, she finally had some free time to have a proper chat with this bizarre system. She complained that the system's name was too girly, so she renamed it on the spot. She also figured out the leveling up rules. As long as she acted affectionate with Meng Dequai in their daily lives to boost their intimacy, it would take a total of 10 level ups to go from level 0 to the max level, and each level up required only 10 intimacy points. Langmeier had originally thought she could rack up enough points by landing a couple of punches, but the system kindly reminded her, if she beat him up and caused him to develop negative emotions, her intimacy level wouldn't just fail to rise, it would actually drop. This immediately dashed her little scheme of leveling up by beating people up. She clicked on the lucky wheel the system had given her. Her luck was off the charts on her first spin. She immediately won a box of snowflake cream, a rarity in this era, which was perfect as a thank you gift for her sister-in-law, Meng Meijiao, who had been taking such good care of her. She also discovered that paid spins cost just 1 yuan each, and the prizes on the wheel were all items you couldn't buy with money in this era: wheat flour, apples, and walnut cookies. The only problem was that she didn't have a single penny in her pocket right now. She'd have to figure out a way to scrape together some cash. When she woke up from a drowsy nap, it was already pitch black outside. She heard clinking and clattering coming from the kitchen. Going to take a look, she discovered that Meng Deque had returned home at some point and was now fumbling around in the kitchen. Beside him lay a plucked old hen, a bowl of gleaming white rice soaking in water, and a bunch of freshly picked Chinese chives. This ne'er-do-well, who was usually so arrogant when out and about, blushed instantly when his wife asked if he knew how to cook. Trying to save face as a real man, he declared, "A real man doesn't hang around the stove," and turned to head back inside. Leng Mei wasn't about to put up with his bad habits. She deliberately called him back to help her chop the chicken into pieces. She'd even been about to snark, "You're such a useless guy, you need a man just to chop a chicken," but when he saw her eyes redden and tears streaming down her face, she said that if word got out, people would think she was having an affair. Meng Deque panicked on the spot. He frantically wiped her tears, swore up and down he'd never yell at her again, and promised Leng Mei he'd learn to cook from her so he could make meals for her in the future. The young couple taught each other and worked together as a team. Before long, they had prepared a fragrant chicken stew and a pot of steamed rice. Meng Deque immediately served her a large bowl brimming with chicken soup, explaining that he'd already taken 2 wild chickens up the mountain that afternoon to present to his parents at the old family home, so she needn't worry about what others might say. Leng Mei looked at the chicken drumstick in her bowl, picked it up with her chopsticks, and placed it in Meng Deque's bowl, a gesture that made this rough and tumble man, who'd never been pampered in his life, burst with joy. Chapter 4. Just after finishing the chicken stew, they heard shouting outside. The chicken thief turned out to be their own husband. The couple was in the middle of their meal when heart-wrenching curses erupted from the street outside. Meng Deque's old speckled hen had gone missing. The woman of the house stood in the street, stamping her feet and ranting, calling the thief heartless and depraved, and saying his son was born without an anus. Leng Mei froze instantly, turning to stare at Meng Deque so intently that he began to feel uneasy. She pressed him, enunciating each word clearly. "Where did this chicken we're stewing tonight come from?" Meng Deque looked completely unperturbed. "Oh, that. I snatched it from Meng Deque's place. Let that old hag yell all she wants, if she's got the guts to bring this chicken back to life with her curses. I just didn't like the look of him. So what if I stole his chicken? I buried the feathers under the apricot tree in the backyard, and I'll bury the bones after we finish eating. Who's going to find them?" Leng Mei almost laughed out of sheer frustration. At first, she was so angry her liver ached, but after hearing the system's guidance, she gradually came to understand. The village rumors were half true, half false. Meng Deque might seem like a reckless bandit, but there could be hidden circumstances behind those misdeeds. She wasn't a narrow-minded person to begin with. Back when she was an assassin, she'd seen too many situations where right and wrong were hard to distinguish. So she decided not to dwell on it anymore. Following the system's hints, she gradually discovered that this rough and tumble ne'er-do-well, who looked fierce and had a tongue sharp enough to choke someone, actually harbored nothing but unspoken tenderness and affection deep inside. In the days that followed, relying on the skills she'd honed as an assassin in her past life, Leng Mei had this tough-looking but soft-hearted roughneck wrapped around her finger, Meng Deque, who used to spend every day wandering around outside and never set foot at home, took it upon himself to learn how to cook and do laundry. If anyone dared to say a single unkind word about his wife, he'd be the first to step forward to defend her. The villagers had all been waiting to see the new young wife get bullied by her good-for-nothing husband, but instead, day after day, they saw Meng Deque squatting in his own courtyard chopping firewood for his wife, while Leng Mei stood by his side handing him water, leaving the entire village dumbfounded. The man everyone described as a ruthless, living bandit whom no one dared approach had become a devoted husband who doted on his wife to the heavens. Amid the chaos of the 1960s, Leng Mei transformed a life that had been destined for misery into one brimming with warmth, making her days increasingly prosperous. Chapter 5. Bad People Don't Wear Labels. After putting the wooden bucket away in the kitchen, Meng Dekui felt something was off the more he thought about it. He was sure he'd locked the door to the rest room before leaving. All the grain, tons of gin of it, had been stacked on the shelves. How could it be that after just over a month away, the grain sacks and all the grain had vanished without a trace? His young wife used to be as timid as a rabbit, she didn't even dare to stand up to anyone. Yet she'd stubbornly head out to the fields before dawn every day to earn work points, working herself to exhaustion without ever treating herself to a proper meal, until she finally fainted from hunger and fell into the river. There was definitely something fishy going on here. He grabbed his machete, slung his basket over his back, and flipped over the courtyard wall. After all, for this burly, 1.85 meter tall man, a wall over a meter high was no different from stepping over a threshold. Why go through the front gate when jumping the wall is so much more fun? Lying on the Kong, Langmeier heard every sound he made and couldn't help but press her hand to her forehead. Does this good-for-nothing treat jumping over walls as his daily commute? Can't he just walk through the front gate like a normal person? She didn't have the energy to dwell on this absurd hobby, so she summoned the system in her mind to confront it. Spill the beans. I was just sleeping peacefully in the modern world. How come the moment I opened my eyes, you'd whisked me off to this food-scarce 1960s? The system had originally intended to play it cool and claim its right to remain silent, but after being shot down by Langmeier with a couple of sharp retorts, it immediately backed down and came clean. In her previous life, as a top-tier assassin, she had accumulated too much karmic debt. Though her natural lifespan hadn't yet ended, she was ambushed and killed in her sleep. The original host, Wen Xiaorong, had accumulated immense merit. So the system promised her reincarnation into a wealthy family as a young lady in exchange for taking over her body. The mission objective was to max out her marital intimacy with Meng Dekui. Once the system reached the maximum level, she would unlock the ability to travel freely through time and space, allowing her to return to the past, uncover the true culprit, and exact revenge. Upon hearing this, Langmeier burst out laughing. So this Meng Dekui is the village thug everyone wants to beat up? No one in the whole village has ever said a single good word about him. He's never done a day's work in his life. He's into petty theft, brawling, and everything in between. Why on earth should I be forced to spend my life tied to a scumbag like that? The system didn't directly refute her, but simply gave her an example. Imagine an elderly person on the brink of starvation who shares their life-saving rations with someone else. That person, in turn, to avoid going hungry, turns around and murders a pregnant woman passing by to steal her money. Would you say the elderly person who gave the food is good or bad? Langmeier instantly understood, in this world, no one is purely black or white. The original host was timid and cowardly. Seeing Meng Dekui's ferocious, menacing appearance had completely terrified her. Perhaps what she saw as beyond redemption wasn't the whole truth at all. She suddenly found herself taking a greater interest in this tough-talking, soft-hearted tough guy. Chapter 6: Unlocking the Infinite Flow version of the lottery system. Can I still go back to the modern world? Langmeier pressed the system, asking the question she cared about most. The system fell silent for 2 seconds. Your body in the modern world is already cold. Under normal circumstances, you can't go back. But as long as you and Meng Dekui max out your intimacy level and I reach the peak of the system realm, I'll be able to unlock the time rewind function. By then, not only will you be able to track down your enemies, but you'll even be able to go back and restart your life. Langmeier's motivation flared up instantly, so leveling up isn't that hard after all. It only takes 10 intimacy points to go from level 0 to level 1. Last time, she earned 5 points just by punching Meng Dekui in the eye. 2 punches would be enough to level up once. A total of just 10 levels to go. Isn't this a task she could complete with her eyes closed? The system rolled its eyes in her mind and offered a friendly reminder. Those 5 points you gained from punching him were a newbie bonus. Later on, if you beat him up and trigger negative emotions, your intimacy will actually drop. Forget about leveling up by hitting people, it's not going to happen. Lung Mei's face fell instantly, so I won't even have the right to punch people to vent my frustration anymore. She immediately changed the subject and clicked on the beginner's lucky wheel. To her surprise, her luck was off the charts. On her very first spin, she won a tube of snow cream. In the resource-scarce 1960s, this was a rare commodity, perfect as a thank you gift for her sister-in-law, Meng Mei Jiao, who had been tending to her every day while she recovered. She turned her attention to the paid lottery page. It only cost 1 yuan per spin, and the prize pool was filled with items you couldn't buy with money: white flour, red Fuji apples, and walnut cookies. The only problem was, she didn't have a single steel coin to her name right now. She'd been counting on the system to send daily tasks for rewards, but it had simply given up, declaring itself a laid-back support system. As long as the couple remained affectionate in their daily lives, it would never bother them with mandatory tasks, truly a model of integrity in the world of systems. Exhausted to the point of her eyelids drooping, Lung Mei couldn't hold on any longer and passed out completely. Completely oblivious to Meng Dequoy sneaking back home with half a bag of extra cash. The items he pulled out were enough to put the Meng family, who'd been poor for most of their lives, to shame: malted milk powder, floral patterned Western-style fabric, bar soap, half a gin of brown sugar, 10 gin of rice, 8 gin of white flour, and a full 20 gin of fine cornmeal. He secretly planned to go to Carpenter G's shop the next day to buy 2 large locks and lock all the doors in the house, just to keep any random strangers from setting their sights on his young wife. Chapter 7, The Tough-Talking, Straight-Laced Alpha Boss's Public Embarrassment. By the time Lung Mei woke up, it was pitch black outside, and the kitchen was clanging and clattering as if someone were tearing the place apart. She walked over to take a look and saw Meng Dequoy, that notorious ne'er-do-well, clumsily crouched in front of the stove, tending the fire. In front of him lay a freshly cleaned old hen, and next to it was a bunch of fresh, tender Chinese chives, a delicacy so prized by the villagers that it was practically a treasure. She had no idea where he'd managed to get his hands on it. I went up the mountain this afternoon and bagged 2 wild chickens to send back to the old family home. Today, the 2 of us are going to have a special home-cooked meal of rice and braised chicken. Meng Dequoy's old face flushed under her gaze, but he instantly put on his macho act again, barking gruffly, "Isn't that what a wife is for, to cook? Get to work right now. I'm a grown man, I can't be hanging around the stove." After shouting that, he darted back into the east room himself, afraid someone might see how clumsy he was at even stoking the fire. Lung Mei rolled her eyes and thought to herself, if this guy were in modern times, he'd deserve to stay single for 8 lifetimes. She wasn't about to put up with his bad habits, so she called out to him in a soft, coquettish voice through the door, "Husband, I'm still weak from my recent illness and can't chop the chicken. Could you give it a couple of chops for me?" No sooner had Meng Dequoy's butt touched the edge of the Kong than he sprang right back up. Though he was inwardly kicking himself for forgetting about chopping the chicken, he put on a tough front. "Why are you so useless? You need a man just to chop a chicken. Can't you survive without a man, huh?" Lung Mei's eyes reddened, and 2 golden tears fell instantly, her gaze as accusatory as little hooks. "If word of this gets out, people will think I'm having an affair. How am I ever supposed to hold my head up in this village again?" Meng Dequoy panicked on the spot, frantically wiping away her tears and swearing up and down that he'd never raise his voice at her again. Lung Mei seized the moment to make a demand. She ordered him to learn how to cook from her and to cook for her from now on. Meng Dequoy, who was used to having a sharp tongue, couldn't very well refuse when she put it that way. He grabbed a kitchen knife and started chopping away with a clatter, cutting the chicken into neat, even pieces. He leaned in with a fawning expression and asked, "Wife, do you think the pieces are the right size? If not, I'll chop them a little finer." Flattered by the praise, the simple-minded man was on cloud nine. He patted his chest and promised to take on all the heavy household chores from now on. The two of them bickered playfully as they bustled about the stove, and before long, the aroma of stewed chicken filled the entire small courtyard. Chapter 8, a whole basin of water to attend to her proud and spoiled husband. Meng Dequoy served Lang Mei a bowl brimming with ham soup, floating with a layer of butter. Lang Mei immediately picked out the fattest chicken drumstick and placed it in his bowl, making Meng Dequoy, who'd been single for over 20 years, so happy that the back of his head was practically creasing from smiling. He chewed the chicken contentedly for a couple of bites, then, with a twinkle in his eye, decided to act like the head of the household. He cleared his throat twice and ordered, "Your husband finds the chicken too salty. Hurry up and bring me a cup of warm water." Lang Mei shot him a sidelong glance. He hadn't even taken a single bite of the chicken yet. What was he pretending to be complaining about? She turned and went to the kitchen, hauling out the large iron basin used for serving meals. She scooped up a full ladle of cold water and set it down on the con table with a thud, splashing Meng Dequoy's face with droplets. "Husband, drink up quickly. If this isn't enough, I'll go draw some more fresh water from the well for you." Meng Dequoy's eyelids twitched wildly in fright. Such a huge basin of water, even an ox couldn't drink it all. How could he possibly manage it all by himself? He had no choice but to make up an excuse, so he asked her to fetch less water on purpose so she wouldn't tire herself carrying such a heavy load. Lang Mei saw right through him but said nothing, simply lowering her head to continue drinking the chicken soup. This left Meng Dequoy fidgeting nervously beside her, terrified of upsetting the young wife who'd just started being a little nicer to him. Just as the two were quietly eating their meal, the courtyard was suddenly pierced by the wailing of a woman. "Which damn scoundrel stole my speckled old hen? May lightning strike him and may his son be born without an anus." Daoju's wife stood in the street, stamping her feet and cursing, claiming that her family's only egg-laying hen was gone. She'd been following the footprints for ages, and the whole village was secretly glancing in the direction of Meng Dequoy's house. After all, who else in the village was notorious for stealing chickens besides him? Lang Mei's hand, holding a piece of chicken, froze mid-air. She turned and glared fiercely at Meng Dequoy, her stare so intense that cold sweat broke out on the back of his neck. "Wife, why are you staring at me like that? I didn't do anything to you." Chapter 9, My Husband, the village's notorious habitual thief. Lang Mei asked, clenching her teeth and enunciating each word carefully, "Is the chicken stewing in our pot the one that Daoju's wife lost?" Meng Dequoy looked completely unperturbed, without a trace of panic. "Yeah, I snatched it straight from their chicken coop this afternoon. That old hen was flapping around pretty wildly, but I pinned her down in one go." Lang Mei nearly choked on her own breath. That old woman out there was stomping her feet and cursing, saying that a chicken thief's son would be born without an anus. She was talking about you, wasn't she? Meng Dequoy glared at her, sticking out his neck defiantly. "Does getting cursed at by her make me lose a piece of flesh? If she's so capable, let her curse this stewed chicken back to life through the wall. I'll make it up to her with 10 chickens right away. Then the two of us can make a fortune selling chickens." Lang Mei's head ached from his twisted logic. In her past life as an assassin, she'd carried out plenty of missions that skirted the line between right and wrong, all of them high stakes, desperate situations where she'd been backed into a corner. But no matter how scarce supplies were now, she certainly wouldn't go so far as to break into a neighbor's chicken coop to steal a chicken. She was so furious she wanted to flip the table, but then she thought better of it. The rumors about Meng Dequoy in Wan Xiaorong's memories were half true, half false. Maybe his theft of this chicken wasn't simply a matter of a craving for meat. She suppressed her anger and didn't touch another bite of chicken. Meng Dequoy looked at the chicken stew pot, now more than half empty, then glanced at his wife's cold expression. His appetite vanished instantly. He wolfed down his rice in a few bites. then carried the pot outside to wash it. Lung Maya slowly finished brewing the herbal medicine left by the original host. The bitterness made her face scrunch up like a steamed bun, when suddenly the system's voice rang in her head, "Host, don't expect Meng Dequay to completely shed his thug identity. Most of the trouble he's caused is true, but there are a few incidents, like stealing chickens and assaulting people, where he was actually taking the fall for someone else." Immediately afterward, the system dropped another bombshell. Since this body had had its core replaced, her appearance and figure would gradually revert to the top-tier beauty she'd possessed in her past life. She wouldn't have to worry at all about making a name for herself in this era. Lung Maya's eyes lit up, so she wouldn't have to live with this malnourished, gaunt face anymore. The system had finally done something decent. Chapter 10: The truth about the chicken theft can't be hidden any longer. Then why did he specifically steal chickens from Meng Daju's house? Lung Maya pressed the system for an answer. The system played it coy and didn't answer directly. No sooner had the words left its mouth than the courtyard gate was pushed open with a thud from the outside. Meng Dequay, clutching a wad of bills tightly wrapped in a handkerchief, strode in and slammed the bundle down on the table with a thud. Lung Maya opened it to find a full 10 yuan and 2 jin of national grain coupons, stuffed so tightly the envelope was bulging. Meng Daju's mother fell seriously ill last month and was desperately in need of money to save her life. She found a middleman from the city who buys wild produce, hoping to sell the family's egg-laying speckled chicken for cash. But that scoundrel cheated the old lady and took the chicken for free without giving her a single half-mao. Meng Dequay scratched the back of his head, showing a rare look of embarrassment. Last time I caught that scoundrel stealing the old lady's eggs, I wanted to get even for them, so I climbed over the wall at night and snatched the chicken. Just now, I slipped 10 yuan and 2 jin of grain coupons under his door, enough for the old lady to buy 3 doses of medicine. That's 10 times more valuable than that lousy speckled chicken. Lung Maya was instantly stunned. So the chicken thief she'd been cursing for the past half hour wasn't some greedy opportunist after a quick profit at all. He was using this brazen method to vent frustration on behalf of the elderly, the weak, and the vulnerable who'd been bullied, and had even secretly made up for the loss behind the scenes. Out on the street, Daju's wife suddenly stopped mid-curse. Holding the money and grain coupons she'd pulled out from under the door, she stood there dumbfounded. Her husband had just been clenching his fists, vowing to go settle the score at Meng Dequay's house, but now he was completely speechless. Meng Dequay was still counting on his fingers as he explained to her, "I buried the chicken feathers under the apricot tree in the backyard, and after we finish eating the bones, I'll bury them too. No one will find a trace. Even if someone comes knocking, I'll just take the blame myself. The whole village already thinks I'm a good-for-nothing. Taking the fall for stealing a chicken won't cost me a thing. Besides, his grandmother's life-saving money has been repaid." Lung Maya looked at the man standing before her, a man with a fierce appearance and a tongue sharp enough to choke someone, yet who hid all his tenderness where no one could see it, and suddenly felt that this system quest requiring her to build intimacy points might not be as grueling as she'd previously thought. Chapter 11: The Village's Unstoppable, Crazy, Wife-Protecting Maniac. Lung Maya had just learned from the system that she would gradually regain her past life's stunning beauty, so perfect it was off the charts, and was so thrilled she almost jumped for joy. Just as she was thinking about making some homemade skincare products to pamper her skin, the system gave up on her and told her to go to the backyard to pick cucumber slices to put on her face, even adding a cutting remark that she was now so poor she couldn't even afford the ingredients for skincare products. Just as she was rolling her eyes at the system, a frantic shout, nearly breaking into a scream, came from outside the courtyard gate. Third Son's wife. "Hurry over to Meng Daju's house. Your husband, the one who can kill a wild boar with his bare hands, is beating the living daylights out of Meng Menyong right now. If you don't get there soon, someone's going to die." Lung Maya was terrified out of her wits, if Meng Dekui ended up behind bars, how would she ever build up her affinity to complete the quest and return to the modern world? She grabbed Mrs. Lee's arm and sprinted toward the eastern end of the village. Halfway there, she learned that no one in the entire Jinshui commune could stop Meng Laosen when he went berserk. Even Meng Daju, who tried to break up the fight, had been picked up with one hand and hurled 2 meters away. By the time the onlookers had automatically cleared a path and Lang Mei burst into the courtyard, she burst out laughing. He wasn't getting beaten up at all. Meng Dekui was sitting tall and proud on a stool, his foot pressing down on Meng Menyong, who was black and blue and wailing in pain, while he tapped his leg impatiently like a grand old man. Hearing his wife call out to him in a soft voice, "Husband, are you all right?" Meng Dekui froze instantly. His face flushed crimson, his hands trembled, and his heart skipped a beat. Just this afternoon, while stewing chicken, she'd been angry at him for stealing the chicken but not eating it. Yet now she was actually showing such concern for him. He quickly raised a finger to point at the hapless man beneath his feet, who was barely clinging to life, his face beaming with a smug look that begged for praise. "What could possibly be wrong with me? He's the one in trouble." The brigade leader didn't know whether to or scold. Just as he was about to ask the barefoot doctor to treat Meng Monyong's injuries first, Lang Mei suddenly swayed, clutched her forehead, and said in a delicate voice that she'd run all the way here and now felt dizzy and weak in the legs. Meng Dekui instantly forgot he was still standing on top of someone. He rushed to reach out and support her, but as he lifted his foot, he kicked Meng Menyong 3 meters away like a tattered sack. Turning to glare at the doctor, he bellowed, "Take my wife's pulse first. If she's even the slightest bit uncomfortable, I'll beat this guy so badly even his own mother wouldn't recognize him." Chapter 12. The whole village gossips until their worldview is shattered. Dr. Wang stood rooted to the spot, holding his medicine bag, completely dumbfounded. Clearly, the one lying on the ground was the patient who was about to be beaten into a half-paralyzed state, wasn't he? Seeing Meng Dekui roll up his sleeves and move to grab him, he had no choice but to obediently check Lang Mei's pulse first. By this point, Meng Daju had also been pushed to his limit, shouting at Meng Dekui to explain himself. Why on earth had he beaten his son into such a pitiful state for no reason at all? Meng Dekui let out a cold laugh and exposed the truth in front of everyone. On the very day of his wedding, the moment he stepped out the door to pay off a debt, Meng Menyong had sneaked into the west room of his house and stolen everything he'd prepared in advance for his bride: 30 gin of cornmeal, 10 gin of sorghum, 4 gin of pure white flour, and half a gin of brown sugar. The poor original owner, too timid to eat his fill, went to the fields hungry every day to earn work points, until he was so weak he collapsed into the river and nearly lost his life. Earlier that afternoon, on his way up the mountain, he'd overheard Meng Monyong's bratty kid bragging that his dad had stolen grain to eat white flour pots. He'd originally planned to just take a chicken from Meng Daju's place and quietly sweep the whole thing under the rug. But then Meng Daju's wife blocked the doorway to his house, stamping her feet and cursing him out, wishing that any son he had would be born without an anus. He was already married. How could he let someone curse his future child? The onlookers instantly went wild. It turned out everyone had mistakenly thought that Meng Laosen was just a random bully, but in reality, it was Meng Menyong who'd stolen grain and nearly killed someone's wife. If it had been anyone else, wouldn't they have beaten him to death and turned him into the authorities right away? Terrified out of his wits, Meng Menyong spilled the beans and confessed every detail of his theft. The crowd immediately erupted in a chorus of curses. Everyone agreed that Meng Menyong deserved every beat he got. Chapter 13. The whole village rallies behind Meng Laosen. Dr. Wang immediately transformed into the voice of justice. As he applied ointment to Meng Monyong's wounds, he deliberately pressed hard on the bruised areas, causing the man to yelp in pain. Then, as he turned to take Lang Mei's pulse, he warned Meng Daju in a grave tone. His wife caught a chill after falling into the water and is now physically weakened. If she wasn't properly cared for, it could affect her ability to have children in the future. Meng Daju's face turned as dark as
By
the
May
bottom of
20.
a pot, and in his heart he cursed his troublemaking wife and son 800 times over. Meng Decoy seized the moment to make his demand. As long as the Meng Daju family returned all the stolen grain, plus paid for medical expenses, nutritional costs, and 180 labor points, the matter would be settled privately. Otherwise, he would take the evidence straight to the Kunming police the very next day. After all, stealing grain in the 1960s carried a severe sentence of 10 years or more. Meng Daju's family was so terrified they were paralyzed with fear. Never mind paying money or work points, they'd even be willing to kowtow and apologize. If their son really ended up in prison, their second son wouldn't even stand a chance of finding a wife in the future. In the end, the two sides settled the compensation in front of the brigade chief and the entire village. Meng Monyong's beating had been completely for nothing, it was a double loss, and their family savings were now more than half depleted. Fearing that the crowd of onlookers might undermine her image as a delicate and fragile woman, Lang Mei tugged at Meng Decoy's sleeve to smooth things over, and the couple headed home first. On the way, Meng Decoy deliberately put on a fierce act of scolding his wife in front of the young men following behind them, yelling at her, "Why are you out here late at night, getting involved in other people's business and causing trouble?" This made the group of young men behind them feel so sorry for her that they immediately spread the rumor throughout the village that Meng's third son had started abusing his wife as soon as he married her, and how pitiful the new bride was, which instantly earned Lang Mei maximum sympathy from the villagers. Chapter 14, The straight, rough and tumble guy hands over all his secret savings. As soon as they stepped inside and closed the door, Meng Lao San, who had been looking like a fierce demon just moments ago, instantly switched to a lecherous grin. Rubbing his hands together, he edged closer to Lang Mei, his mind filled with pink bubbles. "Now that my wife has calmed down, we can finally consummate our marriage tonight." But Lang Mei didn't play along at all. She turned and went straight to the kitchen to reheat the half pot of leftover chicken for him, saving his face. After dinner, Meng Decoy dumped his entire fortune onto the Kong, the malted milk powder, the floral patterned western fabric, and the leftover grain he'd earned from working outside. Even the loose change in his pocket plus the 32 yuan Meng Daju had just compensated him. He pushed it all in front of Lang Mei, pounding his chest and promising that every single penny he earned from now on would be managed by his wife. Lang Mei was at a loss for words. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She took 5 yuan to leave him as pocket money, then immediately began thinking of an excuse to get out of sleeping in separate rooms. This body had only just recovered from a serious illness and simply couldn't handle the strain. Meng Decoy crouched nearby, bustling about and trying to be helpful. He took the initiative to make up the bed for his wife, eagerly hoping they'd sleep together, but Lang Mei simply laid out another mattress right next to him, saying she tossed and turned in her sleep and was afraid she'd kick him. The straight guy's face darkened instantly. Acting like a spoiled brat, he stripped down to nothing but a pair of boxers in a flash, then whoosh, he dived straight into Lang Mei's bed, exposing his muscular, hormone-fueled chest as he stared at her defiantly. Chapter 15, The sarcastic straight guy clashes with his wife. Caught off guard by his underhanded move, Lang Mei had no choice but to shift her blanket 5 centimeters toward him. In a soft, coquettish voice, she whined that she was still sick and asked him to hold off for a couple of days. As a result, Meng Decoy's old habit of running his mouth flared up again. He rolled over to face away from her and grumbled a threat, "With your flat as a plate figure right now, I'm not even interested in touching you." Lang Mei was so infuriated she burst out laughing. She secretly peeked at her waist from under the covers and silently vowed that once her figure fell out, she'd make sure this jerk ate his words. Early the next morning, Lang Mei lay awake until dawn. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got, so she kicked him right in the thigh. Meng Decoy, still groggy from sleep, mumbled, "Which little bastard just kicked me?" He turned to see his wife staring at him innocently with big, watery eyes, and he lost all the courage to even ask a single question. Lang Mei urged him to get up so they could go to work and earn labor points together, but Meng Decoy flatly refused, insisting she wasn't fully recovered and shouldn't go. Flustered by his wife's persistent coaxing, he blushed bright red and bolted out the door, so flustered that he even forgot to grab his shovel. Chapter 16. The whole village gets the wrong idea. They thought he was going to start a fight. When Meng Decoy was spotted by his father and two older brothers heading toward the threshing floor with a shovel on his shoulder, the whole family was terrified out of their wits. They assumed he was still fuming after beating someone up the night before and was now planning to go all out with the shovel today. 3 generations of the family, including grandchildren, and number 7, and the entire clan, rushed toward the threshing floor in a frenzy, and half the village, clutching small stools, chased after them, eager to catch the spectacle. But when they rushed to the threshing floor, they saw Meng E clinging to Meng Decoy's thigh, sitting right on his foot, refusing to let him lift the shovel no matter what. Meng Decoy stood there, completely bewildered, gritting his teeth and shouting, "I'm just here to work, for God's sake. Can you guys please stop clinging to my thigh?" The entire scene fell instantly silent. Everyone stared at this village bully, who hadn't set foot on the ground in decades, and collectively fell into a state of shock, thinking, "I've never seen anything like this in my life." Chapter 17. The sarcastic roughneck instantly becomes the village's darling. The brigade leader saw Men Lausen meekly squatting on the ground, using his shovel to level the threshing floor. It was almost as if the sun were rising in the west. He realized that Men Lausen must be kept in line by his newlywed wife, who had even tamed his rebellious streak. The men working alongside him teased him for being under his wife's thumb, but Meng Decoy shot back with a few sharp retorts. In just a few sentences, he left Meng Ching Shang, the village's most notorious wife-beater, so humiliated he couldn't lift his head, and the whole crowd burst into laughter. Meanwhile, back at home, Lang Mei had been mulling things over for quite a while and realized that the assassin skills from her past life were completely useless in the 1960s. She couldn't pick locks to steal things, her hand-to-hand combat skills were no match for the burly men in her household, and shooting and makeup were all useless skills. Just as she was racking her brain over how to earn some pocket money to fund her sister lottery, and planning to drop by the old family home to see her younger sister-in-law, Meng Mei Jiao. She gave Meng Mei Jiao the rare snow cream she'd won in a previous lottery draw, which made the young girl so happy she jumped for joy. Seeing how hot it was outside, she remembered that Meng Decoy had left in such a hurry that morning that he hadn't even brought any water, so she quickly grabbed a jug of chilled boiled water and headed to the threshing floor. The whole village watched as Meng Lausen, who used to look like a fierce demon, now stood there, drenched in sweat and swinging a shovel. When he saw his wife standing at the edge of the field holding a water jug, his ears instantly turned so red they looked like they might bleed, and he could barely hold onto the shovel. The entire village instantly shipped this rough and tumble husband and his delicate wife, watching the sweet moment unfold with anti-style smiles. Chapter 18. The whole village gossips over a huge mix-up. When Meng Lao sprinted into the threshing yard, he saw his younger brother, Meng Lausen, standing with his hands on his hips in front of Meng Monyong's younger brother, Meng Manchang, brandishing a gleaming shovel. The two were face to face, and the atmosphere was indescribably tense. He was so scared his soul nearly flew out of his body. He opened his mouth and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Third brother, put that shovel down right now." Meng Decoy looked completely bewildered. He'd just borrowed a shovel from the old family home to help with the work. Was that really enough to make second brother this worked up? Meng Manchang had been chatting with him just fine. The incident where his own older brother, Meng Manlong, got beaten up for stealing had already infuriated him to no end. He hadn't gotten a single bite of the flour stolen from home, yet he'd had to share in the financial and labor point penalties. He didn't hold a grudge against Meng Deque at all. The two had been best friends since they were kids, growing up together naked as babies. Seeing that the second son's shout sounded off, he thought something serious must have happened, so he gave a quick nod and started to step aside. Just as Meng Deque was about to hoist his shovel onto his shoulder to go get his assignment from the brigade leader, Meng Delu, terrified, lunged forward, wrapped his arms tightly around Meng Deque's thigh, and plopped right down on his foot, pinning the 1.85-meter-tall, burly man firmly in place. Meng Deque struggled a couple of times but couldn't budge an inch, his face instantly turning into a bewildered "what the heck" expression. Right behind them, Meng Defu led his entire family in a massive procession, old man Meng shouldering a hoe, his two sisters-in-law carrying vegetable baskets. His young nephews and nieces clutching wooden sticks taller than themselves. Even the teenager who'd been feeding the pigs just moments ago came running out to join the commotion. The whole crowd swarmed the entrance to the threshing floor. Aunt Chi, who was passing by, spotted the commotion at a glance. She turned and shouted to her husband, "Hurry! Third brother's getting into another fight. If we're late, we won't even get a front row seat to the show." Within 2 minutes, and Seven's family, more than a dozen people, rushed over as well. Along the way, they ran into villagers who didn't know what was going on. Word spread like wildfire, and eventually even the urban educated youth from the re-education camp came running with their little stools to watch the spectacle. Half the village was crammed at the entrance to the threshing yard, expecting a full-scale brawl to break out at any moment. Meng Deque stood rooted to the spot, holding his shovel aloft, his thigh clamped tightly by his second older brother. In front of hundreds of onlookers from the entire village, he gritted his teeth and spat out a soul-searching question, "I'm here to work, for fuck's sake. Can you guys get off my leg?" The crowd fell instantly silent. The people who had been just moments ago collectively entered a state of shock, thinking, "I've never seen anything like this before." What? Meng Lao San, the village bully who hadn't set foot near a field in decades, was here to work today. Not to beat someone up. Chapter 19, solid proof that he's the village's wife-ruled husband. Old man Meng's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. He turned and glared fiercely at his eldest son, Meng Defu, "You brainless fool. Don't you know that the third son and Meng Tsang have been inseparable since childhood? You say he's going to get into a fight. Which eye of yours saw that?" Meng Defu scratched the back of his head, so embarrassed he could have dug his toes into the ground. He never would have imagined that his third brother, who'd never even held a shovel in his life, would actually volunteer to work in the fields today. His second sister-in-law reacted quickly to save the situation, smiling as she pulled Meng Delu to his feet and explained that he'd slipped and fallen because he'd been walking too fast, preserving what little dignity Meng Delu had left. As soon as Meng Delu got to his feet, he tried to slip away, terrified that his third brother might fly into a rage and dish out a flurry of punches on him too. After all, no one could withstand a beating from this man who could kill a wild boar with his bare hands. Meng Deque, still clutching his shovel, couldn't be bothered to argue with them. He turned and went to the brigade leader to get his assignment. Meng Defu followed close behind him like a doting old father, repeatedly urging him not to overexert himself, to find a spot to slack off and rest when tired, and not to pull a muscle. All this made Meng Deque feel incredibly uncomfortable. He almost wanted to throw this nagging older brother right out of there. The crowd of onlookers slowly dispersed, and the brigade leader stood frozen in place, gazing up at the sky. It was overcast, with not even a trace of the sun. In all his years, he'd never once seen Meng Lao San set foot on the threshing floor. The sun hadn't risen in the west, yet here was Meng Lao San, for the first time ever, coming to earn work points. Even a fool could see this was the result of his newlywed wife having him wrapped around her little finger. He could never have imagined that this troublemaker, who used to resort to violence and shout, "I've got no money, but I've got my life," had, last night at Meng Daju's house, reasoned out the compensation with such clear logic that not a single word was out of place. Even Dr. Wang, who usually argued with everyone, had sided with the couple. The strong laborers on the threshing floor, while leveling the ground with their shovels, gathered around Meng Dekui and teased him, "Third brother, you're definitely under your wife's thumb. You used to be too lazy to even walk from the village entrance to the fields, but now you're actually coming to work on your own. What kind of love potion did your wife slip you?" Meng Dekui's face turned so dark it looked like ink was about to drip from it. He turned and humiliated Meng Qingshon, the village's most notorious wife-beater, so thoroughly that the man couldn't lift his head, mocking him for being banished to the woodshed for 2 nights because he'd failed to prepare his wife's foot bath, which sent the whole crowd into fits of laughter. Meng Qingshon, completely deflated by the taunt, laughed and retorted, "You're all talk now, but once your wife starts bossing you around, you'll be even more of a wimp than I am." The group worked while bantering, bringing up last night's wedding night and winking at him to ask if he'd had a good time. Meng Dekui immediately lost his temper, waving his shovel to chase this bunch of rowdy old bachelors 2 meters away. Chapter 20. The lovely daughter-in-law brings water and floods, making everyone blush. The whole village ships the couple. While things were heating up at the threshing floor, Lang Mei was at home staring at the system, so worried her hair was practically falling out. After going through her skills from her past life one by one, she was completely stumped. Her martial arts were useless since she couldn't beat Meng Dekui, using lockpicking to steal grain and get her dragged off to a public criticism session. Her marksmanship was pointless in an era where guns were banned, and even if she tried to use her makeup skills, the village old ladies would brand her a bourgeois demon and parade her through the streets as a spectacle. No matter how hard she racked her brain, she couldn't figure out how to earn some pocket money of her own, enough to serve as seed money for the system's prize draws, in an era where even raising a couple extra chickens could land you in a public criticism session. Out of sheer desperation, she simply grabbed the box of snow cream she'd won in a draw a few days earlier, intended as a gift for her younger sister-in-law, and headed back to the old family home to visit Meng Meijiao. As soon as she stepped into the courtyard, her 6-year-old niece, Xiong, rushed toward her with her little arms outstretched. Clinging to her leg, the girl pleaded for her to play with bugs. This left Lang Mei, who, in her past life, had been immersed in constant fighting and had never interacted with children, completely stiff with discomfort. Only after she finally managed to coax the little girl away did she slip the elegant snow cream into Meng Meijiao's hands. This rare item, which cost over 4 yuan at the Supply and Marketing Cooperative, made the little girl so happy she literally jumped for joy. She'd been saving her allowance for half a year but hadn't been able to bring herself to buy it, and yet third sister-in-law had simply given it to her. Midway through their chat, Meng Meijiao suddenly remembered third brother had left in such a hurry that morning that he'd forgotten his water bottle. After a morning of physical labor under the blazing sun, he was bound to be parched. With nimble hands, she filled the flask with lukewarm water, cool enough to drink, and pressed it into Lang Mei's hands, winking at her third sister-in-law, "Hurry and take this to third brother. When my brother sees you bringing him water, I guarantee he'll be so happy he'll swing his shovel 3 extra times. Oh, and my mom said the whole family is getting together tonight for a reunion dinner. Don't forget to let third brother know to come home." Lang Mei, her face flushed, carried the water jug toward the threshing floor. She walked along the field ridges lined with golden wheat for about 10 minutes. Just as she reached the edge of the threshing floor, she saw Meng Dekui, bare-chested and drenched in sweat, leveling the ground with his shovel. Every muscle in his body was taut and defined, glistening with a healthy bronze sheen in the sunlight. The group of men around him fell instantly silent as they saw her approach, then began winking and snickering among themselves. Meng Dekui, who just moments ago had been raging against heaven and earth, saw his wife standing at the edge of the field holding a water jug and watching him. His ears flushed red in an instant, so red they looked as if they might bleed, and the shovel in his hand nearly slipped from his grasp, nearly smashing into the top of his foot. Langmeier stood at the edge of the field, smiling at him, her eyes crinkling as she waved, "Husband, come over and have some water." The group of men around them went wild on the spot, collectively cheering for the sparing of the feisty, charming wife and the rough-and-tumble village bully. Their raucous cheers nearly blew the roof off the threshing floor. Meng Decoy, his face flushed red like a young lad who'd just fallen in love, scrambled toward her in a fluster, stumbling twice and nearly tripping over the field ridge, leaving the entire crowd doubled over with laughter.